Hi, my name is Egon Dugas. I do parkour, and I like to talk about it. You're watching episode 4 of Parkour Nerding. In this one, I'm deep diving into takeoff technique on standing prees, so you can get your jumps looking more like this. Everybody wants a bigger jump. You can grow it by becoming more powerful or refining your technique. But strength training is hard and slow and boring, and I just want to do parkour. Well, luckily, your technique is probably not perfect. So, I got some information to help us all squeeze the last couple inches out of our standing prees before we gotta start conditioning. The first component of a powerful takeoff is your foot placement. If you're jumping off a wall, as you usually are in parkour, you want your shoe to hang off the edge a little bit. I like about half the pad of my big toe sticking off. The reason for this isn't so you have a head start towards your landing, like so there's less far to jump. Actually, if you scooted closer, you're gonna jump less far. The reason we start here is so that we are pushing against the corner of the wall and therefore the side of the wall a little bit. So when we push backwards as hard as we can, our feet don't slip out behind us. Boing. The next component of a masterful jump is the rockback, or lean back, or heel rock. I don't know what it's called. But all it is where you rock backwards, you lean backwards so that your weight is on your heels, and then from that position, you rock forwards and do your jump. If you don't already use a rockback, it can be a little bit tricky to implement for two reasons. One, a good rockback takes you to the very edge of your balance, and so it's easy to lean too far and fall over. The other reason is that the rockback complexifies the timing of the takeoff, because now you have to do the jump in the moment that you're leaning forwards. But the rockback is helpful. The forward rocking motion is forward momentum that will get added to your jump. And so the rockback makes you jump farther for the same reason that taking a step into your jump and a whole run up into your jump both make you jump farther. The next component of a maxed out jump is, you could probably guess, the arm swing. This one is so important, I'm gonna devote a good portion of the video to it. The structure of this part is I've got two mechanisms by which the arm swing boosts your jump, and three aspects of arm swing that I see jumpers messing up on. The first mechanism by which your arm swing helps your jump is, I'm gonna call it the yank. Basically, you're giving your arms a miniature running start on the jump, but just your arms, not the rest of your body. So, like on the rockback, how we rocked back so that we could have a bigger forward rock, we bring our arms back so that we can have a bigger forward arm swing. And then when we swing our arms have forward momentum, and when they finish the forward arm swing, they yank the rest of our body along with them. Another way to visualize this is your arms are sort of like Thor's hammer in Avengers. So this can be my Mjolnir. He spins it up and then throws it, and it yanks him up into the sky. And so your arms are less heavy than Mjolnir. Mjolnir is kind of like magic, so it's able to pull a grown man off the ground. Your arms don't weigh that much. If I swing them as hard as I can, they barely take me off the ground. Maybe like that much. Okay. If you have access to a bathroom scale, stand on it, and I don't want you to jump on accident, so rock your weight onto your heels, pick your toes up, and lock your knees. And then, without doing anything with your hips, look at the number and swing your arms up quickly above your head. What you'll see is when your arms reach the top of the arm swing, the number on the scale will read something lighter than your body weight. that is the yank effect. When your arms stopped moving, your body was pulled up, causing it to weigh less from the scale's perspective. What you'll also notice is when you begin to swing your arms, as they begin to move up, the number on the scale will read heavier than your body weight. This is the second mechanic by which your arm swing helps your jump. I'm going to call it loading, because when your arms are forced up, this is just Newton's third law, when your arms are forced up, your body is forced down into the scale, causing it to weigh more. If you know jumps, you know that the upwards part of the arm swing, pushing the body down, happens at the same time as the legs are straightening, pushing the body up. So the astute question to ask would be, why does loading my legs more make me jump farther? Shouldn't I jump less far when I resist the push of my legs? To answer that wonderful question, you have to understand two things. Firstly, your muscles and tendons are elastic. So even when they're contracting, they can stretch like a rubber band. But your muscles are a hell of a lot more rigid than this thing. They're more like this, where it just takes a bunch of force to stretch them. Actually though, even if you're really weak, your leg muscles are probably even more rigid than this band. Because you have to remember, the muscles we're talking about are strong enough to effortlessly lift and toss around your body weight all day long. On jumps, you want to load your legs in order to get that stretch and rebound effect. But for these muscles, it takes more than just your body weight to stretch them like that. So the question was, how does loading your legs with your arm swing increase your jump? The second thing you've got to understand to answer the question is the timing of your arm swing. Yes, I did already tell you that the upward part of the arm swing happens at the same time as the push or the extension of the legs, but there's a little bit more subtlety than that, because an ideal arm swing finishes just before the leg extension does. And here's how that plays out. I'm pushing with my legs, I'm swinging my arms, and my arms are loading my leg muscles and stretching them elastically, but then I finish my arm swing and that resistance, that loading disappears, and suddenly my leg muscles are free to spring back, and I finish my leg extension with some snap. Now that you get the yank and loading effects, I'll go into the three aspects of the arm swing that people often mess up. The first is timing. I've already spoken a little bit about this, and timing varies from person to person, especially depending on how low you like to squat and how far back you like to swing your arms. But generally, I think it's good technique to start bending your legs around the time your hands pass your hips on the way back. Then you reach the bottom of your squat sometime vaguely around when your arms reach the back of their backswing. Then you begin to straighten your legs around the time your hands pass your hips on the way forward, and your hands are above your head before your legs finish extending. Second aspect of arm swing is arm length. And all you can do really to change the length of your arms is straightening your elbows. But trust me, if you are trying to jump your max, you need your elbows to be straight. The reason you want your elbows straight is that the longer your arm, the faster the end of it moves when you swing it. To demonstrate, I'm going to swing my arm 180 degrees with the elbow bent. My elbow, my forearm, my hand are moving from here to here. We'll say that's like 2 feet, and it took about 1 second. If I do the same thing with my elbow straight, my upper arm and my elbow are moving the exact same. Nothing changes about their motion, but my hand moves from here to here. That's like 4 feet, and it took the same 1 second, which means that my hand moved twice as fast with the elbow straight. And the faster you can get your hand and forearm to move through the air, the harder they will yank you on takeoff. This is why when you're splitting wood or swinging a sledgehammer or hitting a baseball, the best technique is to have your elbows straight and your hands all the way down at the bottom of the handle, so that your arm and tool are as long as possible and the tip of it moves as fast as possible. The other thing you'll notice about these tool swinging activities is that people don't swing them like this or like this. They swing them in these huge ranges of motion. And arm swings work the same way. This brings us to the third aspect of arm swings that people mess up on, which is range of motion. You can't really lift your arms any farther up and forward than this position above your head. And so, increasing your range of motion is all about that backswing, baby. You can make your backswing bigger by swinging your arms backwards harder so that they really run up against the back of your shoulder flexibility, and maybe you feel a stretch in anterior deltoid at the front of the shoulder or even biceps. And you can probably bounce out of that shoulder stretch to give yourself a little extra boost on your front swing. You can get a couple extra degrees of backswing by bending at the waist. And everybody can get a bigger backswing by raising their arms out to the sides a little bit. Like this.
Here's two versions of a wide, high range of motion arm swing. They're both great, but if you do the technique on the right, just be mindful that you don't start doing an arm circle.
Let's move on to your squat. Real quick, when I say squat, I'm just talking about bending your legs before the jump. To reiterate, your leg muscles and tendons are difficult to stretch, and getting an elastic rebound from them takes both a powerful contraction of the muscle and loading, which is a short but strong resistance to the contraction. I've already shown that your arm swing plays an important part in loading your legs, but so does your squat. And actually your squat is important for both loading and getting a strong contraction. When I stand up straight, the weight of my torso is resting on my femurs, my thigh bones, which in turn are resting on my shins, which are resting on my feet, which are resting on the ground. My muscles aren't actually having to do a whole lot of work to keep me standing up here because the bones are taking the weight. My skeleton is holding me up. Now, when you bend your legs, you're suddenly in a less efficient position for holding your body weight up because your legs aren't balanced neatly on top of each other like this. They're all wonky like this, and they want to collapse. So your muscles have to do the work to hold up your body weight. Obviously, this is why doing lunges is harder than just walking with relatively straight legs, and why holding a 90-degree squat is harder than standing. What I'm getting at is that in order to load your muscles with your body weight, you have to bend your legs. And I'm sure you already do that on your jump. But you can actually go too far. If you know nothing about jumping, you might think, oh, well, I should just bend my legs as much as possible. But if I bend into a full squat, I'm suddenly in an efficient position again. I can relax my glutes and quads here, or here, but in this case, I'm kind of hanging off my femur. It's the same thing. It's the bones doing the work instead of the muscles. So if I'm trying to load my legs as much as possible, I do want to bend my legs in the squat, but I don't want to come all the way down to the bottom. So the sweet spot for your squat is somewhere in the middle. One thing I see a lot of people fail to do to get load out of their standing jump is dropping into their squat. And I don't just mean dropping and then jumping. I mean dropping and immediately rebounding out of it. And it is possible to have too much load. Your legs can only take so much load before your muscles will collapse. So I'm not recommending you jump off a 2-story building into your standing jump because it won't help. But dropping down into your squat and doing basically everything you can do to give yourself the most load possible is what the most technical standing jumpers do. And if you don't do this and you want to jump farther, I recommend practicing it. I said earlier that the squat can play a role in getting a stronger muscle contraction. This is because muscles in general are strongest in their mid-range position. So your bicep, for example, can pull harder with your elbow in this position than it can pull with your elbow in this position or in this position. I would love to go deeper into optimal squat depth, but I don't really know enough about it to say anything definitive. And there are definitely athletes, powerful athletes, on both ends of the squat depth spectrum. Probably you're just going to get good at whatever technique you practice the most. But being able to jump from all the possible depths will make you a more well-rounded athlete. The next thing to look at when refining your standing pre is your takeoff angle. The moment your feet leave the ground on your jump, your body should be fully extended, and the line of your body is a pretty good indicator of the direction you pushed into the ground. The optimal takeoff angle is mainly determined by where you're trying to go. So if you're trying to jump as high as you can, straight upwards, like if you're trying to grab the rim on a basketball hoop, you want your body to be a vertical line. And if you want to jump up onto a block out in front of you, you have to lean forward a little. The lower and farther forward your landing is, the more you have to lean to make it there.
After comparing the jumps of many top-level athletes, I feel pretty confident making the claim that 45 degrees is the optimal takeoff angle for level standing prees, where the takeoff is the same height as the landing.
On jumps where the landing is lower than the takeoff, sometimes you'll catch athletes hitting these super extreme low takeoff angles. And I didn't really find footage of people doing really droppy max distance precision, so I don't really know what the optimal takeoff angle would be for that. But I don't think this low angle is about getting as far as possible. I think it's more about getting far enough to make the distance while avoiding jumping up, because of course jumping up would mean falling farther and taking more impact. Beginners in parkour don't actually tend to do a lot of power challenges because they're so limited by their ability to land safely and with control, even on small jumps, that big jumps are out of the question. So by the time they get around to doing power challenges, they've been training for a while and they have habits built up from smaller jumps. And so what you'll see often is people trying to do big standing prees while staying really upright, and they just can't do it because you need the big lean to make the distance. But when you first do it, it probably doesn't feel natural. 45 degrees feels way too far. So a lot of athletes have to learn this habit, this technique, later on in their training. That brings us nicely to the last piece of the takeoff, which is rotation. Now for your level and upwards prees, this should not be happening, because here's what it usually looks like. You are afraid of leaning forward because you're afraid of not being able to reach your feet out in front of you on a landing. And in a way, that's a reasonable fear, because if you don't get your feet there, it's not going to be pretty. You have taken some of the power that would have been used to push your center of mass forward, and you've diverted that into rotating your body around your center of mass, and this doesn't move you forward. So you've taken away some of your jump distance and given it into rotation, but you don't actually need the rotation, because unless you have really inflexible hips, you should, at a 45 degree lean, be able to get your feet out in front of you. Hi, you're still here. Thank you for watching this episode of Parkour Nerding. I get the feeling it was probably really long, so I appreciate you for sticking through all of it. I have a couple things for you to do now. One, I want you to like the video if you haven't already done it. Two, I want you to subscribe, because this is not my last video. I've got many more planned. Got a whole big list. might take me a while. This one took me like a month, and I'm about to be moving back to school, so who knows when the next one will be, but it's coming. And after you subscribe and turn on the notification bell, I want you to leave a comment, because I am always looking for more feedback, things you didn't like about the video, things you did like about it, things you learned from this video, things you are excited to try out in your next training. And some of you guys probably know a lot of stuff I don't know, things that have helped you with your standing prees, or things that I didn't really dive into much depth on, but you could expand upon. So please leave a comment, and I can't think of anything else in this very moment. So good night. I love you. Good morning. I don't know what time it is for you. Bye. I almost forgot. Share the video with your friends, with your coworkers, with your mom. I might be biased, but I kind of think that some of the stuff I'm saying is uniquely useful for parkour athletes and potentially coaches. So let people know. It could help them. DM somebody. Put it on your Instagram story. How hard could it be? Just do it. Come on, do it. Do it for me. Come on, bro. Just share it, okay? Please. Please. Please, pretty please. Please, please. Please, please, please. Side note, this is off topic, but one fun thing you can do to see the yank effect in action is jump with a pair of dumbbells in your hands. They do not need to be heavy. I'm kind of muscly, and I like to use 2 pounds, all right? Hold the weights in your hands, swing them back, and then jump as far as you can. And you can actually jump farther with weights in your hand than without, because they just yank you harder. Also, if you want to take things to the next level, after you jump, but before you land, you can throw the weights down on the ground to give yourself basically a double jump. Here's a video of someone doing it. To me, who's watched so many videos of people jumping normally, this looks fake. It looks like there's no way it's not edited, but I know it's real. Check it out.
There we go.